Hey guys, what's up? If you've stumbled across this YouTube video, then you're probably in a position where I was about 2 years ago when I was shopping for our Series 100, which I'm driving right now. We ended up with a Lexus LX470 model year 2003, and we've had it for about 2 years and super happy with it. Really love the truck. Obviously, as you guys know, probably Land Cruiser, the Land Cruiser brand and the Land Cruiser platform is, you know, legendary across the world, right? So I've always known I wanted one. My uncles growing up in Asia, they always have had the old school FJs, even, you know, in the islands and everything. They're just bulletproof. We had the ones that had the double split windows in the back that opened vertically, and some that split, you know, opened up and down. So I've just had a pretty long history with the truck, but in my adult life, I have never really owned one until now. So I thought I'd tell you a little bit about trying to shop for one. So this, in a way, is kind of a buyer's guide or possibly a mild review. Because when I was looking for mine, I was surprised how there were no YouTube videos that really describe kind of the different trims and what to look for, and help me understand what was important to me and kind of what I needed out of this truck. Because, you know, as you guys know, the platform is so versatile that you could get this in a Land Cruiser or a Toyota Land Cruiser trim, or a kind of a more street pedestrian, higher option, more luxurious trim like the LX. But, you know, getting an LX isn't may not fit your needs for wanting the vehicle. So anyway, just to get through it, I took some notes. So I'm gonna read through my little notes here just to help you guys figure out exactly which Series 100 you need. And this is only pertinent to 100 series trucks here sold in the United States domestic market. So in Europe, Middle East, Asia, South America, they're all so different. They're different trims, and it would go on forever. So anyway, you could purchase these trucks in the 100 series here in the US starting in year 98 all the way through, I want to say, 2006, 2007. Obviously we ended up with a 2003, and I'll go through the reasons why I chose a 2003 and above and not an older year, even though I could have found some at a, you know, with decent mileage and at a lower price, obviously. So just real quickly, from years 98 through 99, these trucks came with the 4.7, the 2U ZFE motor, pretty ubiquitous in the Toyota truck line at that time. This came with a 4-speed transmission, automatic, and in 98-99, on the Land Cruisers only, this came with a optional rear differential lock. Which, you know, as you go through this video, you're gonna want to think, like, do you want this truck more to, like, you know, ship your kids around and maybe the occasional ski trip, or do you want to really, like, convert it to what a lot of folks are doing now, into like overlanding vehicles with, you know, a flip-up tent on the top, or triple locked differentials, or whatever it is that you want to do with it. So I have a Tacoma that serves that purpose for me, but just so you guys know, for this LX470, it's really more kind of the family hauler. It's not my primary long trip daily driver, so to speak. And I'm trying not to do any of the hardcore four-wheeling modifications to this truck, because I'm kind of digressing, but as a street car and as a long trip car, as a, you know, occasional let's go to Mammoth and do some skiing vehicle, man, it is it is fantastic. It is like super plush in here, and the stability and kind of the cadence of driving this car is very relaxing. Anyway, I digress. But yeah, on the 99, 98 Land Cruisers, you could get the optional rear locker. Wasn't available on the LX. So if you're shopping around for a 98 or 99 LX, it's probably the least off-road capable platform, if you know, if you can even say that about a Land Cruiser. But it didn't have A-TRAC, which is their electronic traction control system in the four-wheel drive mode. It didn't have any diff locks, so it's kind of a lot more street oriented. And what I don't know, actually, and someone can check me on this in the comments, is I believe all the years of the Series 100 has a central diff lock. It may not have a front or rear, but I believe all of them has a central diff lock. I didn't really get a chance to research that further. This 03 certainly does. This 03 has the A-TRAC and has the center diff lock, which I've tried, and it, you know, obviously it works. So on the LX 98, 99, still all the way in those early years, this did come with active height control. So Lexus, all the year Lexus have active height control, which you can lower to let passengers in or get through really low parking structures or whatever. But as soon as you exceed, I believe, 10 miles an hour, then the car puts itself back to normal ride height again. It's also the same with, it has three settings actually. The active height control has low, normal, which is its normal riding stance, and high. So I want to say that high gets you 4 inches higher. It slips my mind exactly if that's 4 inches from the absolute lowest to the absolute highest, or if that's 4 inches from the normal to the highest. I want to say it's from absolute low to absolute high, but I'm not 100% sure, because if you put this in low mode, so if you put the transfer case into full low, I believe you get a little bit extra height in the AHC. But you know, again, someone can check me on that. I got most of this information from Sleet Off-Road's buyer guide, by the way, which I'll put a link on the bottom for that. Great site. It's, you know, I got it pretty much helped me shop for this thing and figure out exactly which one of these I wanted. So on the LX, still on 98, 99, the LX did have adapted suspension as standard, so you do have the, you know, firmness control on the dampers, which actually, to be honest, it's one of the reasons why I don't want to swap this car over into like fixed suspension, you know, Fox Racing or Bilsteins or you know, Old Man Emu or something, because the adaptive suspension on this truck is fantastic. I absolutely love it. The isolation, the stability of the truck, the comfort, all of that stuff, you know, as you get older, it just becomes more important, honestly, guys. So if it ever goes bad on this car, which this car has 170,000 miles and the thing still works great, RPM Garage, shout out to RPM Garage in Monrovia. They did a full hydraulic fluid flush on that system, and it's, you know, it's fast going up, it's fast going down. It still seems like it's holding up, so hopefully it lasts for many more miles for me before I have to swap it out. But if I do need to swap it out, I'll definitely I want to, you know, buy some brand new OEM stuff, because this truck is probably going to stick with us for a while, if not forever, like the 2004 Tacoma that I bought, that, you know, bought brand new, we still have. So on the LX again, 98, 99 LX, it does have front and rear climate control as standard. You don't have down on the Land Cruiser. You get, you guys, obviously one of the obvious ones is you get the projector headlights on the LX, which, by the way, in the projector headlights, they are better than the incandescent kind of bowl reflector style that you get on the LC, but it's, you know, it's not like a retrofit projector style headlight, which is has a super clear lens, and you can light up, you know, all 8 lanes of the freeway with a really nice prism style cutoff beam. So I'm gonna eventually do that at some point. I still haven't decided if I just want to swap the lens of the OEM housing the OEM projector and the OEM housing, or if I want to actually swap out the whole thing and cut it up and put a bigger, much better projector style headlight in there, because I'm actually using this truck quite a lot, and having that nighttime vision is, you don't realize when you don't have it, but when you do have it, it's just such a treat. It's just so much easier to drive, so much easier on your eyes. You don't get fatigued as much. It's just a much better environment to be in when you can actually see everything on the road at night. So obviously it's kind of a dumb moment, but I did that on my Tacoma because the Tacoma has legendarily awful headlights, and I did that like 6 years ago. I put the retrofit source is where I went to buy some of their earlier retrofit housings, and it's amazing. Sorry, I'm digressing again. So on the LX, like I said earlier, you do not, on the 9899s, LX470s, you do not get A-TRAC, and you do not get any diff locks. I'm not sure about the central, but you don't get front or rear. So they're probably going to be the cheapest. In my opinion, if you're going to go all out and put like ARB lockers in there or something, then for sure you're probably going to want to start out with as bare bones of a platform as you can. You're going to swap out the AHC anyway, and you know, you're going to go through the full truck and kind of take it apart and put it back together the way you want it. So, you know, maybe that might make sense for you, is the LX470 in the early years. You still get the 4-speed transmission, which is, you know, to me is kind of a bummer if you like to drive long trips, but that's what you get. So in 99, you did get the rear AC as optional in the LC, in the Land Cruiser. In the year 2000, not much happened in 99. In the year 2000, the rear locker was deleted in favor of the electronic A-TRAC system, A-T-R-A-C. Active traction control, blah, blah, blah. I don't remember what it was. So the vehicle skid control, or VSC traction control, was added in 2000. Electronic brake force distribution was added in 2000. So, you know, as these years progressed into you know, as they became newer, essentially they became like easier to drive. They became less kind of truck-ish. You'll notice kind of a theme here, and even the Series 200 is like awesome to drive. But you know, obviously it's different video, different blog. So in the year 2001, you got the child restraint seat system added. You know, it's those little hooks in the back where you can easily put your car seat into, and you don't have to use kind of the seat belt. You got one-touch auto up and down on all the windows, but as far as I'm concerned, nothing else much happened in 2001 and 2002. So pretty much 98, 99, and minor changes between 2000 and 2002. The big update to the Series 100 here in the US came in 2003, which is why I have a 2003 myself. You got the 5-speed transmission, which was huge for me. I really, you know, having that 4-speed versus having the 5-speed. The 5-speed is a really good, well, for what you got in 2003, it's a really good transmission. It's got the right ratios. It's smooth, you don't feel it shifting. And having that extra lower first gear and that extra higher 5th gear, it just makes, like, you know, city driving much more pleasant. And it gives you a little bit better gas mileage, and it doesn't like to hunt around as much. when you're going up hills and long trips or whatever. So, you know, I would recommend, if you want a better all-around Series 100, try to go with the 5-speed, in my personal opinion. Some people will obviously have more permanent uses for the 4-speed, and more power to you guys. If you guys want the 4-speed, by all means. On 2003, all of the interior changed, or at least it was updated or facelifted. You got a much nicer center console. You get kind of this gated, you know, Lexus shifter style, like they copied off Mercedes at the time. And you got steering wheel controls. You got a multi-screen touchscreen display. Let me see. You got side curtain airbags. They're all along here. Rear audio system, so folks can control the rear audio with controls down here on the center console behind me. You got powered tilt and telescopic steering wheel, so it's all powered. And honestly, I thought it would break by now, but so far it still works. Every time I get in it, it pushes out and it goes to my position. When I turn off the keys, it sucks itself in, and, you know, as if I'm like a 70-year-old guy and I need the space to get out. But it's, you know, it's cool. I wish I could turn that off so I could preserve the mechanism, but I haven't really looked into that yet. I'm sure probably the Toyota control or the Toyota ECU interface will probably let me do that. Let me see. You got a variable rack and pinion, which I'm not sure if I noticed the difference between the variable rack and pinion between the 4-speed trucks or the 5-speed trucks, but I've had experiences with variable rack and pinions on much more obvious cars. Like, for example, if you look at my other videos, I have an NSX that kind of serves that sports car thing for me right now, and that car has a variable rack and pinion, and it, you know, comparing that with others, it's noticeable. This got stronger U-joints and drive shafts. It's got a 4.1 final drive, which I think is just like marginally shorter than what you got with a 4-speed. Don't quote me on that, but that's just off of my memory. 2003 and up, you got an integrated tow hitch. So in the OEM bumper, there's actually a little cap in the middle that you can take out and buy a attachment from Toyota that you could bolt on a tow hitch. I have never really been able to find out what's that rated at in terms of pounds, but I've seen everything from, hey, you can only put 1,000 pounds on, you can only pull 1,000 pounds on that, up to 5,000 pounds. What I think makes more sense is it probably is a tongue weight of 1,000 pounds and probably a tow max at 5,000 pounds. But I don't know. I have actually, I bolted on a old style hitch on here, OEM old style hitch that has a fully boxed exhaust cutout area on this truck to tow, you know, my track car or whatever. So to me, I haven't tested it or whatnot. So that's the integrated tow hitch. It's got a higher output alternator. It's got a crank hold starter, which is a fancy way of saying it's got an electronically managed starter. So if you don't have to hold the starter key and crank the motor and know when to let go when the motor fires up, right? It's just kind of, you just really quickly press it and it'll crank as many times as it needs until it's fully fired up. That's convenient. I didn't realize I'd like it, but I kind of do. It's kind of cool. This one has this trim that I got. I got lucky and somehow I got like one of the fully loaded top of the line trims on this 2003 LX, and this one came with integrated like LED ambient lighting on the running boards. So at night, you know, when you unlock the car or you open the doors or whatever, the running boards light up, and it's like you're at a strip club. It's freaking cool. I love it. It gives that extra bit of luxury to the truck that I wasn't expecting. I just kind of think it's cool. So it's also got indirect lighting underneath, so it actually also lights up your path onto the truck. It doesn't just light up the running boards themselves, it lights up everything underneath the running boards too. So for older folks, or just for, you know, convenience stuff that you don't really think about, it's a pretty cool truck. This one has automatic rain sensing wipers and O3s and up. It's got oh, this one's cool, the recirculating exhaust sensing ventilation system. So on most normal cars you have recirculating and you have fresh air, right? Well, this one has a middle option. You can put it to recirculate, or sorry, you can put it to fresh air mode, and then if it senses exhaust fumes like from a car in front of you, then it'll automatically switch it to recirculating mode. That's a very loud Mustang. So it's actually pretty cool. However, it doesn't work as fast as I'd like it to. So my fiance, she's really sensitive to exhaust fumes. I am too. And as soon as you smell it for like, I don't know, it takes like 5 seconds or something, and before it closes up. It's cool to have, and I think for most trips I just tend to either have it on one or the other. But when you have the active climate control on, then you can definitely choose that option. It's cool. Let's see here. What else? It's got indirect lighting at night. So this one, I don't know if you'll see when I point to it, but right underneath this overhead console, it has amber, very, very dim, but it's just got enough indirect lighting that shines onto the center console, and basically it shines onto the radio controls, it shines onto all the switches here in the center console, it shines your cup holders. And I'm gonna let this Mustang go because he's pretty loud. I'm gonna slow down a little bit, let him pass. But it's originally a BMW thing. That's where I first noticed this indirect ambient amber lighting that lights up the center console. And so that's really cool. I like that. It gives kind of that little bit of extra luxury touch, and you don't notice it until you have it, until you do notice it, basically. So, and this one also has a heads-up display, which it's really interesting because they only kept it, I believe, for the years 2003, 2004, and I think maybe 2005. They phased it out, but it's got a little tiny screen. It's like about this big that reflects onto your windshield, and it's basically it's a legit heads-up display, but it's an infrared heads-up display. So it's designed to be used at night, and it's designed, I guess, for when you're on some country road that's, you know, really dark, that, you know, your headlights aren't enough to light the road, and then you can see heat sensitive things like deers or animals or people or whatever. Honestly, it's way too small to be useful. I think the more modern solutions from Cadillac or Mercedes might work a little bit better. But the one on this car was really early. I think it's a cool little gimmicky toy. It still works, but the practicality and the everyday use usage of it is not really, you know, that practical. It's really rather distracting if you have it on. But, you know, it's cool, and it's nice for Lexus to experiment with that stuff. And they did put a lot of their most high-end things in the LS and the LX platform. So all those changes basically occurred in 2003 between the LX and the Land Cruiser. So nothing much happened in 04, nothing much happened in 05, but in 06, oh, you know what? I need to clarify something. On the Land Cruisers, the active height control, I don't know if I made this clear earlier, but on the Land Cruisers, the active height control was only available in 2006 and up. So below those years, you only really could get that option in the LX. I'm not sure if I made that clear earlier. But in 06 and up, for both platforms, LX and the Land Cruiser, you did get the VVTi motor, which, you know, bumps up the power, bumps up the torque, bumps up the miles per gallon a little bit. Was it enough for me to spend another, you know, $5,000 to $10,000 on a newer truck? Definitely not. I wanted the 5-speed, and I wanted the cheapest 5-speed I could find with you know, obviously clean interior and a decent amount of miles, etc. So in 06 you had the VVTi, and you had the optional height control in the Land Cruiser. So that's pretty much it that I could think of in terms of what would be important to you when you're shopping for a Series 100. Let me see some of the problems. Let me go through some of the problems that I've had with this truck. And honestly, it's got 170,000+ miles. It is solid as they get. I mean, I'm just so impressed with Toyota. I don't even know how that company makes money, because they engineer their stuff with incredible longevity. You know, I've had BMWs and Mercedes before, and they seem to know how to engineer their parts that as soon as it hits 50,000 miles, those parts start breaking on you. Like plastic impellers and water pumps, for example. Like, for Christ's sake, come on, guys. It's almost like they do it on purpose for it to break at 50,000 miles. But Toyota, you know, it's just incredible how long these cars are lasting. So let's see some of the problems that I had with this truck. When I bought it, all of the speaker surrounds, you know, the foam piece around the speakers in the what system is it that's in here? It's not Harman Kardon. It's not Bang & Olufsen. It's, oh gosh, Mark Levinson. Yep, good old Mark Levinson. On the Mark Levinson sound system in this car, I'm going up a hill now, so it automatically downshifted, and it's got enough power to get up this hill, no problem. I'm even passing other cars. It's awesome. So on this truck, the speaker surrounds were completely deteriorated. So what I had to do was I had to take out all the main mid-bass woofers and the sub, which I think they were all like 6.5-inch woofers, and buy a cheap kit. It was like, I don't know, 30 or 40 bucks online, where you can just clean up the existing surround and glue new foam pieces around it. So I had to do that. Pretty time consuming, but overall it was cheap. So if your time is not worth anything like mine, just kidding, then it's worth it enough for you to, as a kind of a DIY. On these trucks, I also have one of the more annoying things about it on a high mileage Series 100, and I think mostly only owners notice this, because my fiance doesn't notice it, my passengers don't notice it, no one really notices it but me. But you do notice a play or a clunk once in a while in the drivetrain. So if you're feathering the throttle really, really light, and if it's in a higher gear at, say, low RPM, and you know it engages some of that play in the drivetrain. I mean, you've got, you know, a diff up front, a central diff, a rear diff. You've got, you know, multiple drive shafts. You got like a bunch of U-joints. All that stuff creates a bunch of play after a while, and you do hear that thunk, thunk, thunk as you engage, you know, the gas pedal. So that's kind of more an annoyance. It's not really, you know, it's not really an issue. It's not worn out U-joints. I don't hear any whine or anything like that. But I suppose I could change out the whole thing, but it's just not worth it. So that's something to consider. I upgraded the wheels and tires on this one. So in fairness, this has the 20-inch, bling bling 20-inch from a platinum trim Toyota Tundra, which honestly I picked up from Craigslist. and the price at that time for some guy just wanted to take it off his truck and put some blingier wheels on it. And so he was letting it go for less than the price of a set of tires. So I had to do it, and that's what's on this truck now. It's quite a bit taller than the stock 18 inches or 17, whatever it is you're looking at, a Land Cruiser or a LX. So it does kind of mess with the speedo a little bit, but I use Waze anyway, and it has a speedo counter on there, and my Escort has a speedo counter on there, and it's about going like 75 miles an hour. It's about 2 to 3 miles per hour slower on the factory gauge. So you know, it's almost like a highway patrol ticket territory. Another problem I have on this truck is that driver's side mirror has a detent that's missing. So it doesn't know when it's fully closed, and it doesn't know when it's fully open when you have it turned on to automatically fold in and out. So all I did was I turned off that feature. There's a little switch, a bypass switch down there, and it no longer automatically folds in and out, and I no longer have that problem. But I would like to get that fixed, because if you're on tight roads, it's nice to have that feature, you know, close the side mirrors. Let's see, some of the other ones that I remember online when I was searching for this is in the early 98 and 99 models. This had a accelerator position sensor, or essentially a TPS, throttle position sensor, that could go faulty. So I don't know, those are cheap, but you can change those out pretty quickly. The starter, I guess, has premature wear too on this truck. I don't remember if the starter was ever changed on this, but it seems to be fine. And that's all I can remember as far as things that go. Oh, on this power seat, the lumbar support, either the lumbar support motor or the lumbar support switch or something in the electrical system, no longer works. So I do need to fix that, because it's nice to have that extra support in your lower back, you know, as you get older, right? So anyway, let me see what else can help you guys when you're shopping for this thing. Let me just spend like 2 minutes on why exactly is it that I love this truck. So I guess if you look at some of my YouTube videos, you'll see quite a bit of like NSX, quite a bit of like, you know, sports car, visceral content, right? So I love that car. It serves a purpose in my life. It is, you know, quite a joy to drive like once a week, right? But it also can be, you know, once in a while when this is more in a daily commute, you want something that's comfortable, you want something that's quiet, you want something that's a bit isolated. And isolation in a car these days gets a really bad rap, and I think it's unfair, because we also have, say, like an electric car, which we're returning this month, but we have an electric car that is you know, isolated from like engine noise, for example, and it is just so much nicer. When you arrive at your location, you're just that little bit fresher, you're that little bit more rested. You know, so isolation isn't a bad thing if it's in the right car, okay? If I had isolation in the NSX, then that's not my purpose for the car, and it would be a bad thing. But in a commuter long hauler like a Series 100, or especially the Lexus version, it's really quite nice in here. Depending on which suspension setting you want, you can either have it to be super like wallowy and soft and you know, very like almost bolt-like features. I hate to say Cadillac, but you know, Cadillac is kind of what people use to compare. Has that kind of Cadillac-y, you know, very wallowy behavior in its full soft setting, comfort. But and you know, you go 4 clicks the other way in its full sports setting, it's pretty darn firm. The rebound gets cranked up. You know, it's almost like if you had adjustable suspension and you just cranked it up to full rebound, and you're in the hills and you have, you know, much less body roll. So it's a nice to have thing. I put it on full firm or full sport, as what it's called down there, when I'm, you know, going up to the mountains with a bunch of folks, and you know, they don't want to get sick from the truck going like this. So I mostly have it between the middle two settings, which is kind of middle comfort and middle sport. So depending where I have it at, I mostly have it in middle comfort, but sometimes middle comfort depending on transitions in the freeway or overpasses that have kind of this undulating thing going 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour. You get that weird frequency of bounce where the truck just kind of goes like this, and then I stick it to middle sport and it calms it down the whole way. So it's, you know, I really like the active height control, and I really like the active damping on this truck. For 2003, it's freaking awesome. Obviously the newer stuff is way better, but I was mostly surprised by that on this truck. And also the motor, the V8 in here is enough. It's adequate. You can tow enough. Going up hills is enough. It's not, you know, super powerful. Some people put the TRD supercharger on here. I have a TRD supercharger in my Tacoma, but I don't think I need it for this truck. The mileage is kind of shameful. I get on purely city driving, you know, probably 13, 14 miles to the gallon. Purely highway driving, I can get up as high as like 16 and a half. One time I got like 17.1 on a long haul, flat, super flat. But I'd say on average, you're about 15 and a half with mixed, 15 to 15 and a half with mixed driving, miles per gallon wise. So I'm trying to think what else, guys. You know, just really happy with the truck. I hope you find the Series 100 that you need. And sorry this video ran really long, but I'm kind of just rambling. But you know, if you're gonna shop for a Series 100, it's important to know exactly what features you want. All right, have a good one. Thank you, guys. One more thing I forgot. It's really starting to come down. I didn't really talk about prices on this video, and that's because when I was shopping for a 100, prices were kind of all over the place. So prices may differ depending on your local location. Here in Southern California, the LXs were actually a little bit cheaper than the Land Cruisers, I've noticed. I think in other parts of the country, a bit more rural parts, I'm gonna assume that the Land Cruisers are gonna be a little bit more expensive. But when I was shopping for this, you know, about a year and a half, 2 years ago, this was one of the cheaper ones. I picked this up for, I want to say around, you know, basically less than 10,000, but it had some minor issues. So overall cost was about 10 grand. But some of the, and we got, you know, a buddy of mine, Johnny, hey Johnny, he found this for me, and on average they were going around 13,000 at the time. These platforms, they're really sensitive to like gas prices, I think. So when gas prices were expensive, I remember you could get these for, you know, low mileage ones for $6,000, $7,000, $8,000. But nowadays gas prices are a little bit cheaper, and you know, the overlanding craze has kind of gone crazy. It's like the biggest trend right now. So you will find 80s, 100s, 200s, even 60s. They're going to be a little bit more expensive. You know, guys like Jonathan Ward from TLC, who fixed these up, had made them really popular. So I guess my advice is just figure out what the pricing is like in your part of town, or if you're willing to drive, you know, a few hundred miles to pick one up, then that's fantastic. But I'm gonna try not to talk about pricing on this video, because, or I didn't, because it kind of only makes sense to where you are locally. All right, hope that helps.